Well, hello again. Boy, I'll tell you what, the heat has finally hit Arkansas. Yesterday, scalding hot. It's going to be another one today. I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and start this video out with something a little more happy. You'll remember, I guess it was 1 or 2 videos ago, we had a young fella down in Texas, 16 years old, and he and his dad are working on restoring a 1963 Falcon. It's not a Thunderbird, but this young fella is only 16. He likes old things, old music, old cars, old projectors. He's into the antique side of the house at 16 years old. That's fantastic. At his age, I was chasing young girls. I had nothing. Anyway, he was the grand prize winner in our drawing. He won a set of red dice, if you'll remember, to be hung on the mirror of his car. And I told him once he got it, send me a picture of him, getting it, and then show them on the mirror of the car. So here's Connor, down in Texas, our grand prize winner. And as soon as that's done, we'll go right into the shop. Here's the box. Let's open this critter and see what's going on inside. Yeah. Well, I'm impressed with their packing. Look how thick that cardboard is. There's another piece on the inside, and then they wrapped each one individually. Now that looks really nice. That looks really nice. Now I wanted the drilled and slotted rotors. The purpose of the drills is to let heat, and they claim gases out. I'm not sure what kind of gases they're talking about. I guess from the brake pads cause gas of some sort. Anyway, it eliminates the heat, keeps the rotors cooler, and the slots are there to wipe off water and dirt and grime and other crap off your brake pads. So you now know what I know. But anyway, these things were heavy. These two items weighed over 37 pounds. The two of them in this box. So, and that thing is, boy, that thing is heavy. Now let me give you a little word here. I'll tell you what, I'll do it sitting down with the tripod. Now I did a lot of, I looked at a lot of reviews from Brake Performance rotors. And of course, we had everything from one end of the spectrum to the other. Some said that, they're the best rotors they've ever had in their entire life, lasted for years. And down on the other end said 4 months after I bought them they were shot, they were no good, So we had one end to the other. When someone reads that, a person has a tendency to always focus on the negatives, It came out to about, I guess, a 60-40 split, 60 good, 40 said they were terrible. Well, some of the terrible guys, there are American chronic malcontents anyway. They never like anything. So when you buy something like this online, you're really taking a chance. It's a shot in the dark. Had I ever heard of Brake Performance? No. I called the person up, talked to them after I did the reviews, and I was happy with the way they talked to me. I was happy with the way they answered the call, and the lady that talked to me said, "Here's how long it's going to take. Da da da. We're going to have to do this and da da da. It's got to be machined and da da da." Anyway, then there were some guys, that said, "Oh, the metal's no good." Well, what are they, metallurgists? I don't know. How do they know the metal's no good? These things are heavy. Anyway, yeah, put things in perspective whenever you buy something like this. And here's the way I had to do it. You probably might do it different. I'm probably never going to drive this Thunderbird more than 7,000 miles. I'm not going to take this Thunderbird on long trips and things like that. It's just not going to happen. It's going to be pleasure driving, a little jaunt here, a little jaunt there. I'll be lucky to hit 5,000 miles with it, And then probably somewhere along the line I'll even opt to sell the car and start on another one. Who knows what the future might bring? I could be dead. I don't know. So if these brake rotors will last 5,000, 6,000, or 7,000 miles, I'm going to be happy. It was a big savings on cost. I would have preferred to have some made in the United States I think that, I'm not sure, that, you know, this is a guess. I think they get the blanks from maybe China or some overseas company, and then they grind them, machine them down themselves, and produce what the customer wants here in the United States. Plain with drilled or drilled and slotted. I wanted it drilled and slotted, so you know, if it'll last 5,000, 6,000 miles, 7,000 miles, I'll be happy. Okay, so when you read those negative versus positive comments, take all of them with a grain of salt. You know, look at it from how you plan to use it. Will it meet your needs, not the needs of those who left comments? All right, that's just a bit of advice, you know, a recommendation for you. You know, don't get all wrapped around the axle over some of these guys. Now, keep in mind, other companies, they have guys that go on their competitors' websites and deliberately put negative comments down there so to chase away business. So hopefully they'll come to them. I've seen that a lot. That's old news on the internet. Well, now that I've bored you to death, let's go ahead and put the hub on and see what that's going to look like sitting there on top of those rotors. Now, won't that look slick? Yes, that looks slick. And of course, these will eventually turn shiny after they've been worn down a little bit. This is just some kind of a coating. I can't remember what they call it, black something or other. Don't care, okay? It's just something that made it look good. Let's go back to our braces you know, in the engine that run between the shock towers and the firewall. Take a minute or so. I want to show you one more thing. Up in Michigan, our good subscriber George H., formerly known as George B., he watched the last video and he said, John, there's supposed to be a star washer underneath this thing. What you'll have is this will go up underneath the lip on the firewall, and then the lip will be here, and then there's a star washer that goes on top. And I didn't have the star washer. He said it'll be like that, okay, and you won't see it. And I said, well, how about that, you know? And I looked around on other videos, and sure enough, there it was. He was right. So anyway, I went back to my hardware store and I said, hey, look, you know, not only do I want a star washer, I want a flange bolt, because that's, in the other videos I saw that there was a flange bolt. And this is what they had. They had black flange bolts. I thought, wow, that's cool, you know. That's a 5/16 flange bolt right there. So both of the braces will have flange bolts exposed on the firewall above the lip on the firewall. You'll see that later on. I just wanted you to know that that's what it requires. The other ones I'm going to go ahead and leave like this because they're not flange bolts, they're just regular bolts. This is what shows up above the engine, these things here, and I'll be painting those black once I get them in. And they've already got star washers on the nuts as part of the nut. It's all one part, okay? Just a little detail I thought you'd like to hear about. Now here's something that came up unexpectedly, and it involves all you 1966 T-Bird owners. One of our good subscribers, a new subscriber I guess, his name is Nicholas, he sent me an email the other day and he said, John, would you mind going out and taking a photograph of your voltage regulator and show me how the thing is wired? Well, I said, sure, of course, you know, no problem. Plenty of people help me. You're darn right I'm going to go out and help them out. But first I decided to go to the schematics in the manual, which kind of would give me a heads up on what I would expect to see when I got out there. Because I really hadn't looked at the voltage regulator, to tell you the truth. You know, I've been busy with so many other things, to include the floor in the wife's living room, which now has been done, thankfully. And so here's what we have. They call it the alternator regulator in the schematic, all right? And you'll notice that there are 4 wires coming in, and we have 2 yellows, which are 152s. We have a white, and we have a green and red. And incidentally, there is a capacitor right here that goes to ground. It's the radio suppression condenser. That's the one of the yellow wires. That's located on my car beneath the voltage regulator. By the way, the voltage regulator on my car is not original. It is a new one, nice and shiny and silver. Anything shiny and silver in this car is new. Okay, now where did I get the numbers and the colors from? Well, on the next page, over here, there's a little chart. Back up here a little bit. And you'll see that 904, for instance, is the green and red. And the, let me see, the 152s, which is up here, are the yellow. 654 is also yellow, but we don't have to deal with that. So what we're going to do is, for those of you who own 66, let's go out and take a look at the, it all comes into a plug. You say, well, what's the big problem? Well, here's the problem. They all come into a plug, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it plugs into the voltage regulator. Now, does this wire here correspond to the first pin, and the second pin, and the third, and the fourth, going from top to bottom? I really don't know. I haven't the foggiest idea. And then, you know, Nicholas, who wants to know about this, I'm not going to hand him a bunch of bogus crap, and we'll see what we can do here. Let's go out and take a look at it. All right, here's our voltage regulator located on the driver's side of the car. You know, this is the front fender for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about. Back up there a little bit. There's the headlights. Come over here on the driver's side of the car and look around this way, and there's the voltage regulator right there. And this is the plug that plugs it in. I've got it unloose already, or I've got it loose. Some people say there's no such word as unloosened, but there is. Look it up. Anyway, I can unplug it. Now the question is, do these wire colors, here's the white, here's the red and green, and then we have the two yellow wires together right there at the bottom. White, red and green, yellow. Let's see if the first one is a white one. So we come back over here and we look at our drawing, and we find white. Ooh, look at there. If these are numbered, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the pins, 1, 2, 3, and 4, it'll be the third one. Okay, well, that's this book. See, that there was the problem. It didn't show you once the wires went into the block which pin they connected to. That's why you got to come out here and actually look at it physically. If my wires were hanging loose, I'd have a tough time with that, trying to figure out what goes where. I'd have to get a hold of my buddy George H. up there in Michigan and say, hey, can you send me a picture of my voltage regulator? See what kind of wire you got compared to what I've got. Anyway, here it's number 1. So here's what we've got on my voltage regulator for the 1966. I got a white wire. Then, of course, comes the green. The green and the red is number 2 right here. Then we've got both yellow wires going into the same hole, which is number 3. See there? Both going in the same hole. And number 4 has nothing in it. How about that? Now that would totally confuse a person, which would confuse me as well, because that does not match up with what's on the schematic. Better to just go out and physically check it. So hopefully that'll help somebody in the future if they have a problem with what wire goes where with their voltage regulator on a 1966. Dewey has no history on his Thunderbird. He says, I saw it on the internet, found out it was only 15 miles from where I lived. I beat feet over, bought it, and had it towed home. That's what you call spontaneous buying. The next morning, he said, I put a battery in it, disconnected the fuel line, poured some gas in the carburetor with a Coke bottle, and was really surprised when it fired right up. The power went is and all lights worked, including the sequential turn signals. I couldn't believe it. The floors are really bad, but repairable. However, like you, John, I'm not building a show car, just a nice driver T-Bird. I bought the car, he added, because I had a 66 Thunderbird when I was 23 years old. I loved it, but a friend wrecked it. Same thing happened to me, by the way. Since then, I've had numerous cars, but I have a bad habit. It's called trading fever. I know somebody that has the same problem. This is the first 66 I've come across that I could afford. Don't know what I'm going to do about the top yet. Vinyl has been removed and it has some small rust holes in it. Any suggestions would be appreciated. we have our rotors in, that means we're going to have to pack these bearings with grease. And it'll be done manually. I've done this many times. I used to work in a garage at one time, and they had a little pump thing where you could put this thing down on there, and then you pump it a couple times, and it pushed the grease right on up through it. I thought that was slick, you know, made life a whole lot easier, a lot faster. But, you know, after I no longer worked there, I had to go back to doing it manually because I wasn't about to buy a machine that I would use maybe once every 10 years. Anyway, I did go down to O'Reilly's, and I bought some, I guess, I don't know if it's their brand or not. I have no idea, but it's called, just get it in my hand here. It's a high temp disc brake wheel bearing grease. High temp disc brake wheel bearing grease. That's good enough for me. Not very expensive. I walked in and I said, they had ladies behind the counter, and I said, I need a part for a 66 Thunderbird. They both ran over to their computer. Yes, sir. What is the part? I said, I need a can of axle grease. Okay, here we go. How are we going to do this? I'm going to set up the tripod. I'm going to make old 64 Goat happy. He's always yelling, you know, you guys that don't use the tripod. Well, you know, that's the way it goes. We move around and look at so many things. I would have to reposition the tripod every 3 seconds. So anyway, we'll go ahead and pack one of these using the tripod with the camera focused on it. And then you'll know what I'll be doing to the other one. So I'm not really certain which one I'll do. Probably the big one. The big one, because my fingers fit in it, and I have to get both fingers in it, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a gob of grease in my left hand, and then the grease has to go up through here, all the way around. I need to smush the grease all the way around in there, not in here, in here. This in here will get its turn later, but get it all smushed in up between those roller bearings until it comes all the way through and squishes out the top. And if it doesn't squish out the top, we're not done yet. You got to put in another gob of grease in your hand and keep smushing it. And I'll show you how that's done. A while back, old 64 Goat told us he was going to die of the coronavirus. I hope he's not dead yet, or this is going to be a complete wasted effort, you know, using the tripod and all that. Anyway, here's the way it's done. We're going to take gobs of grease, put it in the palm of my hand, about that much right there. Then we're going to take, let me get a pen here. The object here is to squish, like I said, to squish the grease up through the bottom, bring it out the top. It'll come out from between there. You'll see it bulge out, little tiny. I don't know if I'll turn this light on or not. It might help a little bit to see it. I don't know. Should help. Anyway, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to smush, I'm going to turn, I'm going to smush, I'm going to turn, I'm going to smush, and I'm going to keep doing that until that grease is all the way up through. It starts showing its face on this side of the bearing. Then we'll know it's packed. Then we have to flip it over and squish it in from the other side to make sure there's nothing been missed. So let's get started. I'm just going to let you watch you do the whole thing. If you're bored, go to another video. Okay, we're going to turn it. This is the way I do it. This is the way I've done it for years. Squish it. Squish it. It'll begin to disappear out of the palm of your hand. Squish it. This is fun. This is the fun part. This is what guys do. Guys sit here and they get greasy. They get dirty. They work on their cars. That's what it's all about. You know, that's Americana in action. Okay, we're going to go ahead and keep squishing it. Squishing it. I'm squishing it up through the wide part right there. It'll start popping up on the other side. Squish it. Squish it. Now there's some guys that say, well, I don't do it that way. Okay, fine. Do it your own way. I don't care. Squish it. Squish it. It's always worked for me this way. Squish it. You don't want to put it down in the center of the gob, just along the edge. You're dragging it out from the edge. You're just squishing it up in the bearing. I'll tell you what, guys, the heat index down here today is 108. Can you believe it? There, you can already see some of it starting to pop up. Give it a good squish. If you get a gob of it on the inside of the bearing, don't worry about it. Just take your finger, scoop it out, and put it back in your hand. Or you can just do it with your thumb, like I'm doing it. Squish it here, squish it there, squish it there. The problem with doing it with your thumb like that is you have a tendency to block the holes on the other side, and you can't see if it's coming through or not. Sometimes you think it is. If you don't know for sure, if you just keep squishing. If you're in doubt, squish, squish. You can see the grease is beginning to disappear in my hand. It's going somewhere. Squish, squish, squish. Now there's an area that's a little bit dry right there. It needs a little bit more squishing. Okay. Yeah, this car, taught you all how to tap, 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 and now we're teaching you how to squish, squish, squish. See it beginning to pop up now through? Can you see it right there? Anyway, that's how it's done. We squish it, we go all the way around, make sure it's squished. Notice how the grease is disappearing out of my hand. Scoop it back once in a while. Squish it, squish it, squish it. Yeah, we're getting some good stuff now. Now she's going up through. If you can squish it long enough till every bit of the grease disappears from your hand. It goes all the way through the bearings. All the way through those roller bearings and coming out the other side. Now that's what we've got right now. See here? It's all in the bearing. Kind of use your finger to squish it down even more. All the way down in there. Help it come up the other side. Now we're going to turn this around and we're going to squish it from the other side. This is the way I do it. We squish it from the other side to make sure that those cavities are full. You don't have to use quite as much. But you can see it bulging out from the bottom already. See where it's bulging out from the bottom? I hope you can see that stuff. Look like little bumps. Go all the way around like that. We're going to do this to both bearings, the large and the small, on both wheels. We'll have two large and two small, inner and outer bearings. Alright. Then we'll go ahead, make sure we got it here. Make sure we got some in the center. That bearing is packed full of grease. Make sure we get it around. We'll put a little bit more on now before we actually put it on the spindle or down in the race. Okay, you can take some of it off your fingers and squish it in there even more. It's up to you. You stop whenever you think it's full, but you have to make sure it's full. Don't half pack it. Better to overpack than underpack because you want to make sure that thing is full. That's it. Alright, next time we'll go ahead and put the, since we got the rotors in, we'll put the rotors on. We'll put these bearings in. We'll put the grease seal in, the back of the rotor. And then we'll go ahead and put the rotors on and the calipers. So I wanted to do it this video, but it just got too long. And the heat index is very hot out there. To tell you the truth, I'm tired from working on that floor. I need a day or two break. I just finished the floor and then had to run outside and clean up all that wood from that mimosa tree I cut down. And wham, wham, whine, whine, cry, cry, I know. Anyway, next time, it won't be so long. Until then, this is John.